Hello everybody, my name is Sniper and welcome back to the next episode of the F-Zero 25th Anniversary Retrospective Series. We've talked about numerous games so far: the original F-Zero, F-Zero X, F-Zero GX, handheld games, like downloadable Japanese service type games, a lot of stuff. The next game we're going to talk about is yet again another Japanese exclusive game. It is the last handheld game we saw of F-Zero on the Gameboy Advance. F-Zero Climax, the second game based off the F-Zero anime. I'm going to be talking about that right now, so I hope you all enjoy it.
You're going the wrong way!
F-Zero Climax was released exclusively in Japan on the Gameboy Advance on October 21st. 2004. Essentially, what F-Zero Climax was a continuation of what GP Legend did on the Game Boy Advance. It was a continuation of an F-Zero game on the handheld that was based off the Mode 7 graphic style that was originated from, the Super Famicom, Super Nintendo, the original F-Zero. And it was a continuation sequel to GP Legend because it was a continuation of the anime. It was a sequel in terms of continuation in the story for the anime. So basically, a lot of the features, a lot of what GP Legend did, time attack, story mode, I think, zero test, challenge modes, and etc., 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 were included in the game. It was just added upon and, upgraded a bit. I obviously do not know because the game was only released in Japan. But it was a sequel to GP Legend as a continuation of the anime. What GP Legend originally did. It was one special mode that was included in this game that we did not see in any other F-Zero game besides the disc drive version of F-Zero X, was in fact a track editor which allowed players the ability to create up to 30 slots, 30 custom race tracks that they wanted to put and save, race on, and create. So they were able to pick the paths, pick the direction, pick the theme, pick everything, and create their own, 2D style racetrack F-Zero game to race on, like, based off, Mode 7 graphics, like the original F-Zero and GP Legend and Maximum Velocity. There are also 53 courses already made in the game based off events and racetracks like seen in past games, like Big Blue and Ute City and Firefield and White Land and Silent Sand Ocean and whatnot. 53 courses separated among different Grand Prix to play and different difficulties, which is pretty much standard of F-Zero game at the time, like include features and like the Grand Prix mode, which has been a staple in the series since day one, different track difficulties and cups and whatnot. And like I said before, it continued most of what GP Legend actually did. And as far as I looked up in terms of criticisms, praising, like what people thought, it was a game that was generally both praised and criticized for the features that were included in the game. But obviously I don't know exactly what features were entirely included in the game besides the standard stuff like Grand Prix and the inclusion of track editor, because obviously, like I said before, I have never played the game because obviously it's never been localized outside of Japan. But if it was anything like GP Legend, I kind of get what they're coming from. Like maybe there's some things that could have been improved more, maybe things they didn't improve on that were problems maybe in GP Legend, etc. So it was a generally praised game, so people liked it, but also it had its problems and people criticized it for that in publications too when reviewing the game. In terms of actual sales of this game, especially since it was only released in Japan and only has one market it sold, it only sold about 5,000 copies in Japan, which is the lowest out of every single F-Zero game in the entire series, of which was basically equivalent to the fact that it was only released in Japan. It didn't have a North American or European or whatever, international sales data, which F-Zero tends to be a series that sells more outside Japan. There's more of an influence, more of a love for the series outside of Japan than it's ever been really inside Japan, per se, for the most part. So I can understand that. And this is the part where I normally would talk about my my own thoughts on the game, but due to the fact that obviously we never got it, I can't really say anything for that portion of the game in this video. However, one thing I do want to say is the inclusion of a track editor is freaking awesome, and I'm so mad we never got that. That would have been awesome. Be able to make your own racetracks. We didn't get disc drive for F-Zero X. We didn't get this game. North Americans and Europeans and all that stuff never got all the cool creative stuff, which I'm hoping if whenever F-Zero does come back, they include it in the game and it's localized and everything. But overall, like the concept of what it is, if it's like GP Legend, obviously I probably would have said about the same amount of features for it, even though, like I said, I never really watched the anime, but whatever. And the inclusion of a track editor mode, which I like creating stuff in games, like characters and worlds and stuff like that. I love making racetracks. I would totally have used that feature entirely. So that's basically my general thoughts. And that ends it for the actual games in the series. F-Zero Climax, as of now, has been the last F-Zero game released, and that was over 10 years ago. Actually, we're coming up to 11 years ago next month in Japan since the last F-Zero game. What I want to talk about in the next episode, however, is the other appearances that F-Zero and characters like Captain Falcon have made outside of the F-Zero franchise itself, outside of the games it's had. And what other appearances, what other cameos did that series and Captain Falcon himself actually make? Put in the comment section what you guys think, if you guys actually played Climax, and stay tuned for the next episode. My name is Thank You, Peace. Please subscribe if you want to, and have a lovely day. Stay tuned for the next episode.